What is up, Buffalo Fanatics? Z-Bot here with you, live on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel on a Wednesday evening/afternoon. And that, of course, can only mean one thing. It is the smoke break. So good to have you in fresh off of episode 1 of HBO's Hard Knocks, featuring our Buffalo Bills live from Rochester, New York at training camp. Aired last night. We're going to talk about it. I was beyond excited for this to happen, was counting down the days to watch it. Finally came episode 1, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. Loved every second of it. As you come in, let me know in the comments if you watched it. Let me know what your thoughts were on the episode. The Bills also concluded their second to last practice today. James Cook, another no-show. Keeping an eye on that situation, of course, even more interesting now that Kyren Williams has signed his deal, his extension rather, with the Los Angeles Rams. So the plot continues to thicken between James Cook, Brandon Beane, and the Buffalo Bills. We'll keep an eye on that. But HBO did not keep an eye on it. They didn't really focus on it at all. In fact, it was a distant memory almost when you were watching the roughly 45-minute long episode of Hard Knocks. James Cook wasn't even really featured. Didn't talk about it at all, which I found to be interesting. We'll see if we get more into that as the episodes go on here. But we'll talk about episode 1. That was what aired last night. We're officially underway. Hard Knocks kicks off. And that was the initial sign here, as we've gotten a few by now. Of course, training camp's almost done. We now have a Hard Knocks episode under our belt. The Bills kick things off in the preseason this upcoming Saturday against the New York Giants. So we are back. But HBO launching Hard Knocks last night really has you even more excited than you already were for the start of the season. So let's talk about the episode last night. Once again, on your way in, let me know if you watched it. Let me know what you thought. We got Zach Monday in the building, David Camp, Leanne is here, NV, Brandon. Good to have all you guys in as you are trickling in. Let me know what your thoughts were in the comments, what your favorite part was. It'll jog my memory a bit because I want to talk about a little bit of everything that we saw. And I think the HBO crew did a really great job of kind of showing a little bit of everything in the Monday night episode. Everything that you could have wanted to have seen right off the bat, I think, to set the stage of who the Buffalo Bills are and what they're currently undergoing and, the training camp situation in and of itself. Just thought they did a really good job encompassing everything. When it comes to Hard Knocks, we're so used to watching really bad teams on full display. And we get that underneath the hood look of poorly run organizations. And so we see a lot of dysfunction. This is the first time really ever that we've seen a top-end organization featured on this show. So it was kind of unknown as to what to expect. When you're going into watching these other versions of the show, other seasons of the show, you were kind of looking to see, like, are they going to be any better? More often than not, they have a ton of new players or a new coach, or they're coming off of a year where they were terrible and they're trying to revamp things. This is a whole different ballgame. What the Buffalo Bills showcased in the first episode was a top-tier organization and kind of gave you a look into what that looks like from the team's perspective. Of course, us being diehard fans, we know what it looks like from our end. We finally got to get a look at what it looks like from their end. And that's what I think I loved about it the most. My biggest takeaway when I was watching it was, I just love the Buffalo Bills. If you love the Buffalo Bills, then you enjoyed every single second of that episode. I know for the most part, when you're thinking about Hard Knocks, you're looking forward to seeing the drama, right? Maybe it would be the James Cook situation in this particular case, or maybe you're looking to see what's being installed offensively, defensively, the nitty gritty when it comes to the X's and O's. Maybe you're looking to see who's going to make the team, who isn't. Maybe that's coming down the line here in further episodes. Of course, we have a few more here throughout the month of August. But last night, that was not the case. What the first episode of Hard Knocks felt like was a love letter to the Buffalo Bills and to Bills Mafia. It just felt like a love letter. If it was only one episode and one episode alone, if that was a standalone single episode, they were not to do any more, I would be satisfied. Because it just felt like a perfect glimpse of the modern day era of the Buffalo Bills under Josh Allen. You got to get a look at everything. Josh Allen, of course, the ownership, Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, this new wave of defense, the legends, of course, like Thurman Thomas being featured, the new stadium. You just got to get a look at everything that has to do with the modern day version of the Buffalo Bills. And we have episodes of Embedded, and we have the social media team. We've never been more in touch with sports or with organizations because of the surge in social media over the last 10, 15 years. It's just a lot different now. And Hard Knocks has been around for, I think, 20-ish years or so. So we're, back in those days, this was your only opportunity to really connect with the team. Of course, we have connected with the Bills in crazy ways that were never before thought of until social media became as prominent as it has. And I think that's why you feel like you know these guys so well. This nucleus of the team, Josh Allen, McDermott, Beane, it just feels like you're always tapped in because you have constant resources at your disposal, whether it's just coming on here and hanging out at the Buffalo Fanatics, all the other great channels who do content, the Bills themselves, the variety of different shows and analysts and coverage. There's just a million things. But this felt different. It was cinematic, right? You can get the footage from camp online, and you can read articles and read tweets and watch TikToks. This felt like a cinematic version of sort of a 45-minute movie of the Josh Allen era Buffalo Bills. And like I said, it really did feel like a love letter. Everything you love about the Buffalo Bills was re-emphasized in episode 1 of HBO's Hard Knocks. It took it to another level, and it featured it so perfectly. It really did feel like the crew working on this was really in touch with the fan base, because they gave you a glimpse into just about everything you could hope for in terms of how you personally connect to the team and to the city. They really embodied that exceptionally well. And I had read today that this HBO crew works on this show 16 to 18 hours a day. The episode wasn't even finished until 3 p.m. on Monday afternoon. These guys are grinding. And I thought they did a terrific job putting it together. And even though they only have a 45-minute, an hour-long window to kind of pack everything in, it did feel like you got good chunks of several different elements of the team. But when I say love letter, it just felt like that because you're going into it already a massive Bills fan. So you're already well aware of what's going on. You're already well aware of the cast of characters. But it just felt like they took everything you already love and everything you already knew, re-emphasized it and packaged it into a cinematic experience while also featuring, the at-home life and the off-the-field life. And this is what I was hoping it was going to be. We'll have to wait and see what these other episodes will look like. Maybe it'll get more in depth in terms of the actual football element. But for episode 1 to set the stage, I really thought they did an exceptional job. Obviously, when you have Josh Allen as your quarterback, he's going to be the centerpiece of everything. Doesn't matter if it's the game or it's a television series like HBO's Hard Knocks. Josh Allen is the Buffalo Bills, and because of that, he is always going to be the main attraction, regardless of what it is that's going on with the team. That was no exception on Hard Knocks. They kicked things off almost instantaneously with just an incredible homage to what Josh Allen currently is. They opened up the episode with essentially a 10-minute long. How do you even describe this? It was basically a 10-minute long love affair of Josh Allen. 10 minutes worth of just, this dude is the absolute man. Here's why. And you got to see it in all of the ways that we are already aware of, but you got to see a little bit more. And you really got to take a deeper look at all of the elements of Josh Allen that come together to make him what he is and make him not only as great as he is, but as likable as he is. I don't care if you're a diehard Chiefs fan, Ravens fan, Bengals fan, Patriots, Dolphins, whatever. Especially a Dolphins or a Patriots fan, or really especially a Dolphins fan, who's nobody's been more on the short end of the stick during Josh Allen's career in Buffalo than the Miami Dolphins fans. I don't care where you sit. You could not watch episode 1 of Hard Knocks and not say, man, how could you hate on Josh Allen? How could you not like 17? Everything about the guy is just tremendous. You see him interacting with the fans. You see him talking about how important practice is and being at the training camp and being around the guys. You see him interacting with the guys, which I love the most. You saw him talking to Joe Brady and fellow teammates, linemen. It just feels like he's everybody's best friend on the team, and that's not an easy thing to do. Obviously, you're going to command respect when you're one of the best players in the league, but to be able to relate to everybody and be everybody's friend while still commanding that respect, right? And still being the leader, the guy who sets the example. That's a tough line to tread, and it feels like Josh Allen does it better than anybody. And I think you got a good glimpse of what that looks like within the organization. You got to see how he interacts with everybody within that, and that's including Terry Pagula. We're watching Josh Allen walk around the new stadium with Terry Pagula. He's joking around with him. You know, he's talking about going over to the beer garden at the new Bills Stadium if they win. He was cracking jokes. He's like, you're telling me this fan base drinks beer? Just, the guy is the whole package. Nothing that we already didn't know, but you never turn down an excuse to know even more about the guy. And this is why I said going into this series, when it was announced that the Bills were going to be on Hard Knocks, I said enjoy it, embrace it, because the opportunity to be a part of this is going to be short-lived. It's not going to be here forever. And I think that's what made me really enjoy it the most. Knowing the Bills would never have stood a chance being featured on that show in the light in which they currently are being featured on it. Maybe they could have been on the show in years past because they were one of the teams that didn't make the playoffs the year before and they were forced into doing it. But in terms of being the team chosen to do it because, hey, you're one of the best teams that brings in some of the best ratings, that has some of the most exciting, watchable elements in the league, that the Bills were chosen because of that. And you're sitting there watching it, and it really hits home. I just sat there, and I was genuinely smiling the entire time. Because you can't help but soak it all in. You can't help but think, man, this is where the Bills have gotten to. This is what they currently are. And I can't believe it's actually gotten to this point. There was such a long period of time where something like that episode felt like the furthest thing possible from being a reality. You're watching that episode last night, and really your main takeaway is, how great is it to be a Buffalo Bills fan in 2025? It's always great to be a Bills fan, no matter what's going on. It's the best fan base in sports, in my opinion. But you watch that episode, you get a further realization of how far the team has come, what they currently are, and you've never felt better about being a Buffalo Bills fan. And that's how I felt watching it. It just felt like a proud moment almost. And I think that they touched on that in the episode, sort of. You know, Sean McDermott made an emphasis during the red and blue game where he's like, you know, make sure to go and interact with the fans. You know, they're who makes this go. Deion Dawkins was saying to a fellow teammate, you know, hey, you show them love, they'll show you love back. There is a genuine appreciation within that organization of the fan base. And I don't think that that's commonplace in every organization across the four major sports. I just don't think that's the case. I think this is where Buffalo is genuinely different. I think every fan base thinks they're the best, and I think every fan base thinks that they're different from others. I think that this truly separates Bills fans and the Bills themselves from other fan bases and other organizations. There seems to be a genuine appreciation for the fan base from top to bottom. Sean McDermott makes sure that the fans are recognized. So does Josh Allen. And really everybody within the organization from top down. They really make an emphasis. They really make sure that this fan base is recognized for playing a big role in, the overall aura of the team. The Bills are the Bills fan base has really, I would say, grown the exposure of the team itself. It's almost like it became cool. Once Josh Allen became a part of the Bills, it became cool to be a Bills fan. But it wasn't just because Josh Allen was the quarterback. It was because of all of the elements that went into being a fan, whether it was breaking tables or the chicken wings or the fact that you're showing up 40,000 deep to a practice game. It's always been different, and it's always mattered. Those things do matter. I'd have to think it's probably not as electrifying going out and playing a game knowing that you're at home and you're playing in front of a crowd that's half the opposing fan base. That's never going to happen in Buffalo. It's never been the case, even during the worst of times. And I think that you kind of saw, even just little tidbits, but tidbits nonetheless, you saw the appreciation within the organization for the fans. And they kept emphasizing that, which I love. And the episode itself really felt like it was just encapsulating that appreciation of the fan base as well. It really did. It really married together what makes the Bills great. And that is what they've become in terms of their personnel and in terms of their leadership. And then, of course, the fan base. Those two things come together to really form something special when looking across all of the sports. And like I said, I don't think that is necessarily commonplace. I would venture to believe if you talk to any fan of any team, they're going to make their arguments as to why they're the best, why they're different. But I think deep down, everybody knows the Bills fan base is different. And I think you saw some of that in that first episode of Hard Knocks. But back to Josh Allen in particular. Watching Josh Allen just operate out on the practice field in slow motion to the tune of that epic HBO Hard Knocks theme song. Was that not just the best? To me, it's the little things that I like to enjoy the most at times, especially with these Bills and knowing what's going on. As Pierre always says, knowing who we have, kind of soaking those things in. You're just sitting there for what felt like 10 minutes watching Josh Allen just go to work to the tune of the HBO Hard Knocks theme song, and he's just going to town. He's dicing up the drill where you throw it into the mesh. He's just cooking on that, throwing balls to Josh Palmer, dicing it up and down the field, walking out in front of the crowd at Ralph Wilson Stadium with the red helmet on, and it just feels big. It just feels huge. And they did a really good job of showing how valuable Josh Allen is to the Buffalo Bills and to the city of Buffalo itself. I thought they did an excellent job of portraying who Josh Allen is and just how meaningful he's been to an organization and a fan base that has been longing for a player like that for nearly a quarter century. It can't be overstated. What Josh Allen has brought to the fan base, what he's brought to the city of Buffalo, what he's brought to the team. It was like crawling through the desert looking for a water bottle and you finally found a Gatorade jug's worth of water. That's what Josh Allen has been for the fans, for the city, and for the team. And you can never get enough of seeing that on full display. And you really saw that in a really theatrical way in that first episode. And I'm glad that they spent some time painting that picture. I think everybody by now, Josh Allen, of course, coming off the MVP, everybody by now knows the greatness of Josh Allen. And you marry that in with the popularity, the likability, the talent. You're a football fan. You're well aware of what Josh Allen's bringing to the table. But of course, when you're a Bills fan, it's just different because that's the guy. That's your guy leading the charge. And you can never really get enough of watching him go to work. And you can never really get enough of watching him interact with the fans, hanging out with the fellas, just doing his thing the way only he seems to be able to do it. And I love that. I think that the approach was always going to feature Josh Allen in a way that really propped him up on a pedestal. But the way that they did it, I thought was great. But watching Josh Allen throw it around the yard to that theme music was epic, was it not? It was just great. One thing that stood out to me when we're talking about Josh Allen and really just the impact he has, did you notice the amount of times throughout that episode that Joe Brady was just blown away? Did it stand out to you guys too, the amount of different plays that would go down throughout camp that made Joe Brady just say, wow? Just literally beside himself almost, just in utter disbelief at what Josh Allen's capable of doing. And Joe Brady even admitted on the episode, I wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for 17. And the thing is, I think a lot of these guys feel the same way. You hear Deion Dawkins. What did he say during the episode? Deion Dawkins goes, that's what they're paying us for. Keep 17 clean. All of these guys, not only are they so bought in to the game, to the team, I think the number one reason they're all so bought in is because of Josh Allen and how bought in he is. All he kept emphasizing when he was being interviewed in that episode was how much it's going to mean to him when he inevitably gets to the point where he brings a Lombardi trophy back to Buffalo. It's all that matters to the guy. Doesn't care. He does not care about the MVP. He does not care about the fame. And I feel like it's genuine. A lot of these guys can say things. They can say whatever they want, and they can go about things the way that they want. Does it not seem to you when you're watching him talk and when you're watching him just articulate how he views what he's currently got going on? I mean, he comes from Fireball, California to becoming an A-list sports celebrity. You really can't go from A to Z in a more drastic way. And the guy has handled it about as good as anybody could possibly handle something, a change of that magnitude. Brandon Beane had said it. McDermott says it. But Joe Brady stood out to me because Joe Brady, of course, is the one that's worked with Allen for the longest time now, and he's the one sending the plays into the headset on game day for Josh Allen to go out and execute. You can tell those two have a great relationship, and you can tell that Joe Brady is just infatuated with Josh Allen. And you can tell that he does not take for granted the opportunity that he has to coach that guy in the prime of his career. One of the things that stood out to me the most, it just felt like every time they panned to Joe Brady, he was just like, I mean, you got to be kidding me. Look at this guy. I mean, you want to talk about the utter mesmerization of Josh Allen. It's not just the fans, by the way. This is what, I forget the player, but they were talking about somebody picking up the wrong towel, and then someone told the guy, for the life of me, can't remember which player it was. Let me know in the comments if you remember. But a player had picked up the wrong towel, and someone said to him, oh, hey, I think that's Josh Allen's towel. And he's like, might get Josh Allen sweat on me. Greatness. These are the players saying that. The players. That sounds like something I would say if I happen to find myself out on the field. We're talking about the guys that are getting paid to be out there with them. It's not just the fans. It's not just the media. There is just an overwhelming appreciation and fascination of Josh Allen in Buffalo. And I thought the episode did a really good job of painting that picture. Now, if you're not a Bills fan, maybe it was a little sickening just kind of having to sit there and watch the 10-minute googly eye Josh Allen episode or portion of the episode. I think if you're a football fan, like I watched the quarterback series. Oh, by the way, Delta's saying it was Ty Johnson. So it's even funnier. It's not like it's just a guy who just joined the team either. Ty Johnson, a vet, been with the team for a while. Right behind Josh Allen. I mean, it's amazing to me. It's just amazing. What was I saying? I just killed my own momentum. Somebody help me out. David Reed saying turn the mic up, by the way. All right, I'm glad you said that. So I have been testing out, let's do an experiment real quick. I've been testing out microphone settings because something, it's just been off a little bit and I can't figure out what, and I had a feeling it might be a little low. Does it sound good though? Does it sound good in terms of the quality of it? Because I want to make sure that that's down pat first. I'll turn the volume up now. Does that sound a lot better? I have the volume up as high as it can go. Let me know if that sounds better. Koala's saying the mic is fine. I know it's fine, but I know that David's on though. He's right because it is lower than usual. I've taken off some of the processing settings because I thought that it was messing me up a little bit. I noticed when I was going back on the pre-records, I was going back once I had it recorded and I had the raw file. I was noticing every time I started a sentence, it would cut off like the first word I said, and it was driving me insane. But I just cranked it up. I cranked the volume up. Let me know if that's better. I'm seeing in the comments that it is. I'm so glad you actually said that because I didn't want to like come on here and be like, hey, before we get going, do you guys mind if we do an audio test? That would be so me, by the way, with the amount of technical difficulties I've had over the years. But Dave, I had to take the opportunity because you brought it to my attention. So, Koala's saying now it's just louder. Okay. Hey, if it sounds good and it's loud, then whatever. I'm loud naturally, so I'm sure you got to turn me down at some point regardless. All right, Teddy was reminding me of what I was talking about. Teddy was saying you were talking about how it might be sickening to listen to. Thank you. That's what it was. Thank you. It might be sickening to listen to the Josh Allen glazing if you weren't a fan and started bringing up the quarterback series. Thank you, Teddy. Beautifully done. Yes. So I was watching the quarterback series. Obviously, we as Bills fans have some disdain for the Cincinnati Bengals. Even though that they missed the playoffs last year, we still consider the Cincinnati Bengals to be one of the biggest threats to the Buffalo Bills in the AFC. The Bills have struggled against Joe Burrow and that offense every time they've gone against them. And even though they had a down year last year, that's a team that you see upcoming this year on the schedule and you circle it immediately. You do not care about what happened last year. That is a team that I don't want to say you fear, but you respect, and you know that when you go out there and play that team, it's going to be a dogfight, and it might be one of those games that the Bills drop on their schedule. If you're looking throughout their schedule and you had to pick a handful of games that the Bills could lose, you could argue that that certainly would be on that list. The reason I bring that up is because even though I have some contempt for the Cincinnati Bengals, especially after what they did to the Bills a couple of years ago in the playoffs, I'm watching the quarterback series, and by the way, I'm seeing it's really loud. Now I'm gonna split the baby here. I'm gonna go from where I was to the max volume, and I'm gonna put it in the middle of that. So I lowered it a little bit. I think that sounds better because, by the way, I had it at the max volume and my ears exploding listening to my own voice. But I'm watching the quarterback series, and I could not help the entire time I'm watching it. I'm just thinking to myself, man, I don't know how you couldn't like Joe Burrow. I really don't. I mean, yeah, maybe you think, oh, I don't like the whole fashion thing. I don't like that he's wearing, exotic clothes and he's got a huge jewelry collection. Too flashy of a quarterback for me. Or maybe you don't like that he comes across cocky or whatever. I don't care about any of that because the guy's a genuine dude. You could just see him sitting down with his parents, how much he respects his parents, in particular his mother, the relationship he had with her, and just how good of a dude he seemed to be. For, as famous of a guy as he is with the amount of success he has had all the way back to his senior year at LSU, beyond likable. So I really I like to separate when I'm watching stuff like this, my disdain for the team and then the players themselves. I mean, I even go back to watching the Tom Brady documentary and the Patriots documentaries. Nobody dislikes the Patriots more than the Buffalo Bills fan base. I don't know how you couldn't have watched that series and just not have been like, dude, this is insane. Like just watching this dynasty go to work and do what they did. Granted, you were like sick over the idea of it happening and having to relive it. And of course, it always being at the Bills' expense multiple times a year. But there's no way you couldn't tune into that and not just say, what can you do? I mean, this, you got to respect it. I don't know how you couldn't watch Josh Allen on that first episode of Hard Knocks and say anything other than, man, Josh Allen's, he's the dude. He's the guy. If you watched that episode of Hard Knocks and walked away saying, I can't stand Josh Allen, you're just a hater. You're just a hater. You couldn't give me one logical reason as to why you feel that way. You could not do it. And luckily for right, I would say right now, has it ever been a better time to be a sports fan in terms of the likability? I was thinking this when I was watching that quarterback series, even beyond Joe Burrow. I thought Jared Goff was really likable. I thought that Kirk Cousins, I mean, we already knew he was likable, but he's even more likable than you could even fathom. The guy's a pro athlete. He feels like a guy that would just be your neighbor, a guy you'd talk to when you're out mowing the lawn and he's watering the plants. It feels like all of these guys in the league right now are just so likable, especially the big stars. I mean, I know Patrick Mahomes, nobody dislikes the Chiefs and Mahomes more than us, right? But it's hard to get on Mahomes' case. He's had like one slip up his whole career when he said to Josh Allen after losing the game, I can't believe that they, threw a flag when they were offsides on the game-winning play there. I mean, other than that, for being as famous and as big of a star as Patrick Mahomes is, that's why it's so hard with the Chiefs. It's like Andy Reid. How could you not like him? Patrick Mahomes, he's done nothing but carry himself exceptionally well. It's so hard. You hate the team. It's hard to hate the guys. And that's why I don't know how you could watch that episode of Hard Knocks, watch Josh Allen, not only the talent, but of course the off-the-field attributes that are, to me, as important as anything. When you are the face of the organization, the leader of the team, the intangibles are almost as important as the tangibles. And I would argue that Josh Allen is good at the podium as he is out on the field. And you saw that. They really blended together how good Josh Allen is with his teammates, with the fans, with the higher-ups of the organization, and, of course, how great he is out on the field. So really loved the whole let's just show him the obvious here. Josh Allen's great. Let's package it together, make it look nice, and send it out. And I ate that up. Let's talk about the new stadium. Let's talk about the new look we got from within the new stadium. That was some angles we have not seen yet. We really got a grand tour. They walked around the entire facility almost. We saw Josh Allen walk in to the home locker room with Terry Pagula. Man, that thing looks huge. Obviously, you can't make much out of it right now. There's nothing in there, but you could just tell by the sheer surface area of the locker room that it's going to be massive. There seems to be no stone being left unturned with that stadium, and I thought it was fascinating when they were out on the field talking about the impact the wind could potentially have on a game based on how the stadium was built. And Josh Allen asked one of the lead construction workers of the stadium, he's like, what's the impact of the wind? And the guy said that, like, coming into work, driving to the stadium, or being outside of the stadium, it could be as windy as you could possibly imagine. You could feel it right as you get out of the car, almost get blown away. But as soon as you walk into that stadium and get down on the field, you can't feel anything. He said it feels like it does right now. And of course, that was filmed in late July here. Now, I don't think you can do anything about the temperature, but we all know that the Bills can operate in cold weather. Not much you can do about the wind whipping everywhere. It affects the kicking. It affects the throwing. They seem to have found a way to eliminate that. And I can't wait to see when this new stadium opens up how legit that really is and how impactful that is on games. We know how windy it can get at the Ralph. I mean, I was at the Bills-Patriots perfect game, and granted, it was a perfect game. The Bills were not affected by the wind whatsoever. But just from the fans' perspective, that was the coldest game of all time. Thank God the Bills routed the Pats the way that they did, because that was what was keeping you somewhat warm. And it was a lot to do with the wind. You guys know when you go into the Ralph, it's not the temperature really that has you freezing. It's the wind whipping at you constantly that just makes it unlike anything else. it just takes it over the top. So from the fan experience, that seems like it's going to be a major upgrade. And then for the kicking game and for Josh Allen, how could it not be an upgrade? Wind in Orchard Park, New York, no longer going to be a major factor. I thought that was crazy. And I've heard about this. I've heard reports about this as the stadium's been built. But when he said you could be outside the stadium, it could be whipping wind and you could feel it like you'd always would, and you come down onto the field and you can't feel it at all, I thought that was crazy. Divine coming in with a super chat. Divine saying, have to make this quick. I'll be listening tomorrow during work. Loved the first episode. Definitely think I want more football for episode 2. Go Bills and have a good night. I'll appreciate you, Divine, for stopping in while you could. Appreciate the super chat. And we'll see you on the next one live. I know this is kind of an odd time, different than usual. You bring up a good point, though. You said you want to see some more football next time around. And I think that we're going to get that. I don't think that the HBO crew is going to be able to repackage episode 1 for another 3 episodes. They can't just continue to show how great Josh Allen is and funny aspects of players on the team and then the fans and a couple of off the field antics and then move on. They're going to have to get into deeper stuff just from a content perspective. You're only going to be able to repeat so much. So they're certainly going to get into that, I would imagine. And I saw some people that weren't necessarily pleased with the episode overall just because it kind of did lack that football element. From a non-Bills fan, I could understand that. You know, if you're not a fan of the Bills, I could understand tuning into that last night and being like, man, this is just a Buffalo Bills love affair. This is 45 minutes of, hey, look how great the Bills are and their fans are and Josh Allen is. I could understand that. And you were probably hoping to see a little bit more of the X's and O's, a little bit more of how the sausage gets made out on the field. But from the Bills fan perspective, which we're all coming from, I just loved the way that they went about it. And like I mentioned earlier, I think it was a great stage setter. This is a multi-episode series, and I think it really did a good job of setting things up for where they're going to go from here. It's not going to be that every single week, but what they were able to do is kind of give Bills fans a even deeper look and an even more appreciation for the team. And they gave non-Bills fans kind of an idea of what the Bills are, what the culture of the team is, what the overall vibe of being a Bills fan's like, and then they're going to move on. I think it did a great job of hitting both areas. I could understand if you're not a Bills fan, maybe not loving that, but you can't say that it didn't do a great job of kind of painting the picture of the modern day Buffalo Bills from the fan perspective and the team perspective. I'm sure they're going to get into more football stuff. I mean, I can only imagine. But anyway, the stadium looks great. It was cool to see Terry Pagula walking around with Josh Allen throughout it, and it's amazing the progress that they've made on it. And I just can't wait to see it. I really can't. I haven't been up there since the Broncos wild card game, but just from January to now, which has been a decent amount of time, 8 months, just a drastic difference in how far along it's come. And my God, this time next year, it's going to be ready to rock. So it's always cool to get a different perspective on what's going on at that stadium. They did mention that there's going to be that beer garden. I don't know what that's going to look like. That sounds awesome. I mean, that sounds great. Right now, you know, you go to a lot of these stadiums across the different sports throughout the country here, and there's a lot of crazy offerings. You go to the Ralph, and I love this about it, but it's just as simple as you could possibly have. And I do love the simplicity of it because you're there for football. You're there for football. You're not there to mosey around the concourse and, you know, get a little bit of food at this station. Oh, we got to go check out the other food station. That to me is what going to a baseball game's for. We can go spend 2 innings getting food at this concourse, go upstairs and get food there. Oh, we got to go try a drink on the 3rd floor. By the time you get back to your seat, you miss nothing. You can't do that at a football game because even if you go to get 1 beer, you could miss the game-altering play. That's why I almost never leave my seat during a game unless it is at halftime or I have to go to the bathroom to the point where I got to go. I got to leave the seat. Other than that, I'm never leaving my seat because you just can't risk it. Every play in football is just so important, especially when you're at a game that is super competitive throughout. You just don't want to miss a thing. But it might be a bit tougher to remain in your seat at this new stadium, because it seems like they're going to have a lot of those additives that all the new stadiums do. And they did mention the beer garden there. And I don't know what that exactly is going to look like, but the current iteration of the Ralph that's been erected for 50 years now certainly doesn't have a beer garden in it. So we'll see what that looks like. And I've been to some beer gardens that are standalone, of course, like regular beer gardens. Rochester has one. That's awesome. They're great. So I guess the idea, if they did build it in a location where you're able to watch the game from it, I mean, that could be sweet. That could be sweet. So we'll see. Deion Dawkins, you knew Deion Dawkins was going to be a center point. How could he not? He's one of the, Deion Dawkins is like the core heart and soul of the Bills. I think he does such a great job of representing the Bills in a humorous, lighthearted, and likable way. This is why Deion Dawkins will always be one of my favorite Buffalo Bills, because I just think he embodied the team, what and kind of, who they are, what the fan base is. He just represents Buffalo so well. I've always thought that. Such a genuine guy, so likable, so interactive, just so fun, really. A guy that you love to have on your team, especially when you're out on the field doing the work he does in such a great way. You add on top of that just how fun he is to watch off the field, on top of being a Pro Bowler on the field. How can you not just love Deion Dawkins? One of my all-time favorite Bill, always will be. And you knew, because of the character that he is, he was going to get his due on Hard Knocks. You knew he was going to have the limelight shine on him at some point, and they wasted no time doing that. We saw Deion Dawkins at home with the fam. By the way, his kid's the cutest ever. Hilarious. And I can only imagine how fun it must be to have Deion Dawkins as a dad. You see how he interacts out on the field and on the sidelines or whatever else. I can only imagine how fun it is to interact with his young kids. They probably love him. He's dancing around. He's doing all these crazy antics or whatever. The craziest thing of all is that Deion Dawkins, despite being an offensive lineman, is into all of these action sports. And I remember when I had interviewed him one time in person, I was talking to him about this, because I don't think I've ever heard of another football player, much less another offensive or defensive lineman. Just the guys that are known to be the big men out on the field, just going to battle. I've never really heard of another football player or another lineman be into the type of things that he's into. I think this is what makes him so unique. He loves to skateboard. They didn't really feature that, but he loves to skateboard. He's into like a ton of action sports. And the one that they highlighted, drifting. So Deion Dawkins had this super cool garage with all this signage around it, featuring, the Schno emblem everywhere. He had a painting of himself on the garage. It said Schno Automotive. The car he had said Schno on it. I mean, I knew he was into stuff like that, like motorsports and action sports and whatnot. I didn't know that he, on the daily, was hopping into a NASCAR and just going 100 miles an hour around the bend. That was wild to watch. He's throwing the kids in the seat, whipping around the thing. They're loving it. But he said he does it daily. It's like his therapy away from football. It kind of helps him decompress. And there's a lot of ways you can decompress. I wouldn't have imagined that hopping into a NASCAR and going about 100 miles an hour, drifting around the corner, would be one of the ways to decompress. But it seems to be working for Deion Dawkins, and that's his favorite way to kind of take his mind off what's going on out on the field. That was crazy, though, wasn't it? I mean, you're watching that and you're like, man, I'm glad Deion's got a good handle on this, because I couldn't help but wonder. I'm like, man, does the organization know that he's doing this? Like, because he is whipping around on that thing. I think from what I could tell, it felt like the camera angles were making it seem like it was a lot tighter than it was. I got to imagine that that's a pretty open space. But do you really know of any other athlete at all that does stuff like that? And for whatever reason, I just didn't anticipate a lineman doing that. just feels like linemen are linemen, right? They're just the trenches guys. That's what makes Deion so unique. He's into so many different things. It was really cool that they showcased that. Got to take a look at, his family, which was awesome because obviously Deion, one of the more likable Buffalo Bills players of all time. Speaking of likability, speaking of one of Bills Mafia's favorites, Tredavius White. It was so great to see Tredavius White featured on the first episode of Hard Knocks because it was so great to just see him back with the Bills. And you could tell how excited everybody was to have him back. Brandon Beane telling him how great he looks. He goes to the Pittsburgh Dairy and all the fans coming up to him. So great to have you back. Deion Dawkins brings his kids up to Tredavius White. They're calling him uncle, right? Tredavius White says to one of Deion's kids, I used to change your diaper. This is home for Tredavius White. And I think that matters a lot. Trey White gets hurt. Bills unfortunately have to move off of him. Bounces around from the Rams to the Ravens, trying to get healthy. Winds up back in Buffalo. I don't think you can overstate the impact that being in a place where you're comfortable has on your overall mentality and your life in totality. Being in a place where you're comfortable, being in a place where you want to be, you're inspired to be, it brings the best out of you. And I think that this is why we are seeing throughout training camp here the resurgence of Tredavius White. We are seeing Tredavius White emerge into a player that was considered to be a guy that might be on the way out in terms of his career, to a guy right now that is looking like he is going to win the cornerback 2 spot on this team. When the Bills initially signed Tredavius White in the offseason, to me, it felt like a feel-good story. It felt like what they had kind of done with Micah Hyde last year. Let's bring Tredavius White in, 0 expectations. He's a hell of a locker room guy. He's a fan favorite. Everybody loves him, and it can't hurt to have depth at the position. That's what it felt like to me. That is not the case. Tredavius White has shown up and balled out throughout the full duration of training camp. And when you factor in Maxwell Hairston unfortunately getting hurt, it feels like as of right now, Tredavius White is going to be manning that cornerback 2 spot, and it doesn't feel like something that you're concerned about based on everything we've heard about him through the 2 weeks at St. John Fisher. If you just found out today that Tredavius White was on the Bills and you knew about his stint in Baltimore, in LA, and then I told you Tredavius White's going to be the starting cornerback 2 for the Bills, you'd probably be concerned, rightfully so. Because, of course, it's just not what it once was when he was in Buffalo, an all-pro level, a first-round draft pick that wound up meeting that expectation. I think being back in Buffalo for Tredavius White has brought the best out of him, and because of that, you are now getting the best play that he has exhibited. And I understand it's practice, but this is as good as Tredavius White has looked in some time. And I genuinely think it has a lot to do with him being back in Buffalo. Of course, he's as healthy as he's been in a long time. That's the key. But when you factor in being healthy and then being around the guys that you're comfortable with, that you have rapport with, that you love, some of these guys are your best buddies. You grew up in the league with this organization. They drafted you. They took a chance on you. They got you into becoming an all-pro. It's got to feel like you're home. You ever go away for a long time and you come back home? Oftentimes, it's funny, like you grow up at home, you go away to college. And when you're growing up at home, you're like, man, I can't wait to leave here and go to school. I can't wait to leave the nest, go to college. Then you're at college for months. You come home for winter break and you're like, man, I love it here. I love it here. I shouldn't take for granted my time that I spend here. I no longer live in Rochester, where I grew up and where my parents are. Every time I go back, I'm reminded of how great of an area I grew up in. At the time, you don't really think about it. At the time, you don't think, oh, this place is great. They got everything. I love it here. You don't hear a lot of times people say, unless you're living in like a really cool place, you don't hear people constantly sputter or you don't hear people constantly say, oh, I just love living here. I just love it. I love it. When you're growing up, just where you grew up. I don't think you get a true appreciation for where you grew up until you leave. I don't think you get a true appreciation for where you grew up until you leave and come back. Tredavious White grew up in the NFL in Buffalo, unfortunately had to leave, comes back, and I think that he is beyond appreciative of being back. And I think the inspiration that he has kind of garnered from being back has really fueled him, along with being healthy again, into becoming a guy that could be very impactful for this Buffalo Bills defense in 2025. Now, Sean's saying, and this is interesting because he's saying, well, Tredavious White didn't win the cornerback 2 spot. He got it because of injury. We even saw in the Hard Knocks episode, there was no lock in Maxwell Hairston winning that job before he suffered his injury. Now there's still no lock that Tredavious White wins the job because Maxwell Hairston's only going to be out for a few weeks here. There's no way, in my opinion, he starts the first game because I just think it's too much of a risk. Even if he's healthy, I just don't think Sean McDermott goes that route, nor do I think he should. But I certainly heard the reports coming out of camp well before Maxwell Hairston got hurt that Tredavious White was playing at a level that might be tough to justify not having him start at the cornerback 2 spot. And when you factor in things not working out with Kaiir Elam, really wanting to have things work out with Maxwell Hairston, there's no need to rush it if Tredavious White is proving that he's capable of manning that position. And all I've personally heard out of camp up until now is that he has done more than enough to earn that role beyond perhaps solidifying that role because Maxwell Hairston got hurt. No, Sean's saying, I'm not saying he didn't earn it, but the true person in the battle isn't on the field. No, you're right. I mean, obviously, like I just said, I think the role is now solidified for Trey because Maxwell Hairston got hurt. But from everything I had heard and everything I had seen, from what I could tell, Tredavious White was either neck and neck with Hairston for that role or the leader in the clubhouse. And regardless, by the way, this is the whole benefit of bringing Tredavious White back already. Maxwell Hairston gets hurt. I mean, imagine, Bean didn't bring him back. At the time, when they brought back Tredavious White, like I mentioned, I was just more in the camp of, oh, it's so great to have Tredavious White back. Because, maybe the social media team's going to, show videos of him messing with Brandon Bean again or doing whatever. You can't watch Tredavious White in any capacity and not have a smile on your face. The guy's awesome. I mean, don't you remember when he came back for the playoff game, the Ravens-Bills playoff game? He was walking into the locker room and he saw all the media members from Buffalo and he went and said hello to everybody. Who does that? Nobody does that. Everybody loves Tredavious White. Have you ever heard anybody say a bad thing about Tredavious White? I personally have not. So when they brought him back, this is what I was thinking. I'm like, oh, it's just great to have Tredavious White back. And if they win it, how awesome would it be to have Trey White, who was one of the initial cornerstones of the Sean McDermott era? How great would it be to have him back pursuing a Super Bowl with this team? It's gone from a feel-good story to, whoa, look out. Tredavious White could be a key for the Bills defense and a key in playing a part in the pursuit of that championship. But you're watching Tredavious White you're watching him on Hard Knocks, and you're immediately reminded just how much you love the guy. You're watching Hard Knocks, and you're immediately reminded of why Tredavious White has always been a fan favorite in Buffalo. You got multiple instances. So he's at Pittsford Dairy Farm, whipping up his own sundae. He walks up to the woman working at the desk, working at the counter. He just goes, "Can I get 2 cookies, warm them up, and put some hot fudge on them?" And then he goes, "I'm not asking for much around here." So he gets the sundae, which looked phenomenal, by the way. Shout out to Pittsford Dairy Farm, because they just got an invaluable amount of free advertising. Pittsford Dairy Farm stock just hit an all-time high after that episode. Now, growing up in Rochester, everyone was well aware of how damn good Pittsford Dairy's ice cream and milk is. You ever get the chocolate milk from Pittsford Dairy? If you haven't, next time you're around the area, I highly encourage you do. It'll be the best chocolate milk you've ever had. In fact, I don't even know if you can call it that. It is essentially a milkshake in milk form. It's not your standard grab the chocolate milk off the shelf at Wegmans. This stuff is on a whole other level. The place is incredible. That was a what felt like 5 to 6 minute free commercial for Pittsford Dairy Farm seen by millions nationwide, and it looked terrific. And Tredavius White's handcrafted in his own sundae. Then he's handed them out to the fans that are at the place. Not everybody's like that, man. I have such an appreciation for players who get it. I have such an appreciation for players who get what it means to be in the position that they're in. The NFL would not be what it is without the fans. It is the most popular sport in the country by a Grand Canyon margin, and it's only getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that is because of the fans' insatiable desire for nothing but football, football, football year round. The passion that NFL fans have is unlike any other. And the size of that overall fan base is massive. And I love when players get it. They get that the reason why their games are getting viewed by 30 million people and the seats are selling out every week and the salary cap goes up every single year and their paychecks are getting bigger every single year is because of the ever-growing fan base. They get it. And because they get it, they show appreciation. And I think that you have to have that within you. I mean, maybe you can be taught it, and I think you could fake it. You certainly could, and I'm sure people do. But you can oftentimes tell when someone's kind of going through the motions and faking it, or when someone just really enjoys it, just genuinely enjoys interacting with others. That's Tredavius White. He just loves it. You can tell. You're watching him squirt the water bottle with the little kid on the field, interacting with Deion Dawkins kids, handing the sundae out. He's just a character, man. And it's so great to have Tredavius White back. And I'm really hoping that what we've seen thus far through camp ends up translating on the field. Because not only is it great to have Tredavius White back as a Buffalo Bill, it would be infinitely greater to have him back on the field being impactful as a Buffalo Bill. And hopefully we see that coming up here in 2025. Up until this point, we've been given reason to believe we have a good shot of seeing that. The scooter scene. Whoever was the genius at HBO who decided to put together the scooter compilation should win an Emmy. You got to give an Emmy to whoever was in the room at HBO and said, hey, what if we get footage of all these guys on scooters and throw it together, package it up to music, slow it down, and put it out to the masses? It was incredible. The clip of Spencer Brown where he just slowly raises his hand to say hello, I tweeted this out. Anytime Spencer Brown this season does anything notable, I don't care what it is. It doesn't need to be some pancake block or a game-altering block that he makes to save Josh Allen to make a score. I'm talking about the bare minimum. I want every chance possible to just tweet that video out. It's only 2 seconds long. And it's just him on a scooter. I mean, mind you, Spencer Brown is one of the biggest human beings I have ever seen. I don't know if you've seen Spencer Brown in person. The guy, it's just... You don't have words for it. I've never seen anything like it. Some of these guys on the Bills' offensive line are just beyond comprehension in terms of their sheer size. Spencer Brown is not saying he's a man amongst boys would be doing him an injustice. And to watch him that size on a scooter, slow motion, like he's 8 years old, just slowly raising his hand to say hello, was incredible. I don't care if you watch one thing from that. I don't care if you don't watch the whole episode. If there's one thing I could tell you to just watch, it would be that, because it was just great. But that wasn't even the best part. KJ Hamler. All these guys have these insane scooters. I think it was Deion Dawkins that you could tell had a custom-made scooter. It had his number on it in the Bills colors. It probably cost $5,000. KJ Hamler has a $100 kids electric scooter from Target. That was off the charts. You look at what all these guys are rocking. They have these $1,000 scooters that are whipping around the parking lot. KJ Hamler, I think he had told reporters that he heard guys get scooters and he saw one at the store that was $100 and he's like, oh, why wouldn't I just go with this one? Which I love the mentality, by the way. That's exactly how I'd be. I don't care how much money you have or how much money I could hypothetically have. I'm always looking to get the best bang for my buck. And if you're seeing an electric scooter for $100, why the hell would I spend more than that? I'm only going to use it for 2 weeks. I'm going to just buy one for $100. So he buys an electric scooter for $100, and it's the one that you would get your 7-year-old kid for Christmas. Watching him rip that thing on the sidewalk there was just incredible because he seemed to have no clue. He was like genuinely stunned that that's what he wound up with. I'm guessing when he got there and saw what everybody else had compared to what he had, he's like, oh man, what am I doing here? But that was an iconic moment. I mean, you want to talk about a moment that I think all Bills fans will remember. KJ Hamler with the kids scooter on Hard Knocks. I mean, he had a couple of doozies on the episode. He had the kids scooter, and then he brought the pregnancy pillow. When he said he had the pregnancy pillow, when KJ Hamler said he had the pregnancy pillow, I immediately thought to myself, this guy knows ball. Because obviously right now, Caroline, about to be 27 weeks pregnant on Monday, she has a pregnancy pillow. I don't know if you've ever slept with a pregnancy pillow. It's night and day. It's essentially designed to be another human being in pillow form. Like it's the size of another human in pillow form, and you kind of just cuddle it. You morph around it. It's incredible. Night and day. And I just thought, I'm like, man, this guy gets it. This guy's a pro sleeper. He's a vet. He knows what he's doing. Because I didn't know, I had no clue about the pregnancy pillow until Caroline got pregnant. You think I knew about that? What the hell reason would I have to know about that? And she's like, oh, we got to get this thing. Granted, Caroline, she's watching TikTok, and every time she watches a TikTok, all of a sudden we got to get this, we got to get that. God bless her, Caroline. She's the reason why TikTok Shop, I think, it does as well as it does. But she was not kidding. She's like, we got to get one of these. We got one, and she's lucky she even gets to use it because of how much I like it. And when she's out or whatever, she's working late or whatever, that's mine. I love that thing. So that was awesome. I think that's the vast majority of it. Overall, I absolutely just loved the episode from top to bottom. Once again, it just felt like a love letter. It felt like a love letter to the Buffalo Bills and to the fans. It did a great job of displaying the greatness of Josh Allen, not only on the field, but off of it. Did a great job of giving you the vibe of the Buffalo Bills that all of us fans already knew, but have no problem in knowing more. And, fans of the NFL who aren't as engulfed with the Bills as we are, they got to get a look at it too. I thought it did a really good job of showcasing Rochester, which was great. St. John Fisher looked awesome in it. The aerial shots of Rochester, kind of painting kind of giving the vibe of, this is why the Bills do this, because it's beneficial to them. Going from Buffalo to Rochester and what that brings to the table, the camaraderie and the culture building elements of leaving home, being around the fellas and the fellas alone, doing nothing but practicing and hanging out, and how much that means. It was just cool to see my hometown on HBO too. That was awesome. And to see, Pittsburgh Dairy on there, and St. John Fisher, where I've been 1,000 times. I've played games on that very field, lacrosse games on that very field, practices on that very field. So it was just cool from my perspective to kind of see that in that way. But overall, if I could define the episode in one way, it would just be if you love the Buffalo Bills, you had to have loved that episode. You had to have. If you love the Bills, you love them even more today because of what you watched on that episode. If you were a huge Josh Allen fan, if you're a huge Bills fan, if you love the Bills, if you love everything about the Bills, somehow you found a way to love that all even more after watching the episode. And now I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next. We've set the stage. We've had the Bills love affair. What is going to be around the corner? Because we now have James Cook missing 3 consecutive training camp practices. There's no way they're going to be able to ignore that on the upcoming episode. We have another practice tomorrow. I guarantee that, based on just safe assumptions here, that James Cook will not be participating in that practice unless he miraculously gets a contract between now and then. Got the training camp game Saturday. We'll see a lot of that too, which I think is great. The ability to turn these episodes around so quickly is what makes them awesome, because you're getting the most up-to-date storylines and footage and whatever else. So I'm thinking the next few episodes here, we're going to get more ball, which is great. Because like I said, if that was a standalone episode, it would have served its purpose. I think we're going to get more into the hard knocksy type episodes coming up here. But I think episode 1 could really be something you revisit like 20 years from now. Like when my kid is 20 years old and I want to show him what the Bills were like when I was around his age, it would be episode 1 of Hard Knocks that I'd show him. I think it did such a great job of showing what the modern day Buffalo Bills look like. You know, me and my dad are often growing up, me and my dad always talking about the Bills teams that he grew up with. In particular, the 90s era team that was the dynasty that didn't win one, of course, but that was what he was engulfed in at around my age right now. We would talk about it ad nauseum. And of course, there's a bunch of stuff you can watch, but it's not to the level, of course, of what it all is now. And when me and my dad watched Four Falls of Buffalo together, it felt like that, where it was like, man, this is what you lived through. I mean, I get it now. I always got it, but watching it all unfold in that movie, you know, it really hit it home, and it really gave you a good idea of what that was like if you didn't live through it like I didn't. If I could just use one example of, hey, this is what the Josh Allen era of the Bills looked like, I'd sit my kid down and watch that for 45 minutes, and I think it would do a hell of a job of hitting that home. So that's why I thought the episode was awesome, and I think it'll always stand alone as being a really great representation of the Sean McDermott, Josh Allen era of the Buffalo Bills. Now, we'll see what we get coming up here. We got the preseason games coming along here, the James Cook drama. Obviously, roster cuts are around the corner, and depth chart positions are around the corner. We already got our first depth chart that just came out. So there's a lot more that we're going to be able to see here, and I'm looking forward to it. But in the meantime, that's going to do it for the Hard Knocks Episode 1 recap on this episode of The Smoke Break. I promised you guys I was going to hop on here and do one for every episode, and we are going to continue to do that. I wanted to do it earlier, wasn't able to, but glad we got it in today. I actually wanted to do it after the show, after the show aired, but I have another obligation at that time, so it just didn't work out. So expect to have this exact type of show each Wednesday. The time may vary, but we'll do the recap episodes every Wednesday for the remaining episodes of Hard Knocks. So glad we got to get it in. Glad the episode was awesome. Looking forward to watching the next ones, and so glad you were able to tune in, not only for the Hard Knocks, but to tune in and recap and talk about it with me here on The Smoke Break. All right, $1:10 in the books here on a Wednesday evening. Much love to all of you as always. Enjoy the rest of your night on the way out the door. Like button and subscribe button if you'd be so kind. And other than that, as always, go Bills.